Welcome to the Aligned Powerhouse, the podcast for executive women who are done leading from burnout and ready to rise from alignment. I'm your host, Dr. Brittany McGeehan, licensed psychologist, high performance and mindset coach, and guide for high achieving women who are ready to lead, live, and love without abandoning themselves. Here, we unpack the nervous system truths, mindset shifts, and emotional patterns that drive your leadership so you can build power from the inside out. Let's get into it. All right. Hello, guys. Welcome back. Okay, so we're going to start by being honest here. You know how we do it around here. So usually I record podcast episodes with a very general, I have an outline. I have things to keep me on topic, right? And I'll be so honest, I am batch creating content over a week. I'm experimenting with this new way of doing content where I do all my recording in 1 week and then I go and post things later. I focus on sales later. I focus on operations, more self-care, all of those things later in the month. And all of this is cycle syncing for myself. So when I'm ovulating, when I'm in I think it's the follicular part of my cycle, this is when I'm going, when I'm really in flow. This is the week that I'm creating all of my content. Now, this will probably not come out until January. I'm recording in November. I'll be really curious to see how this is received because something I'm noticing is that as I'm recording these episodes, I'm going completely, totally off script, which I do anyway, but usually I have a place to orient me and come back. So I'll be interested to see how this feels for you as the audience is the receiving end, right? So part of that is I'm going 1,000,000% off script on this episode. But what I want to talk to y'all about today is this concept of self-efficacy within children, because I'll be real on it. And this is something that I struggle with myself. And this is going to be an episode for mothers, fathers, parents to be, anyone who's interested in raising a human being who is not so susceptible to being crushed. And I think that we're in such a weird, we're in the sandwich generation, right? Is what we're calling it. But here's the real truth, the real honest, the real unhinged. By the way, unhinged Brittany is here and hosting the Aligned Powerhouse podcast today. Dr. Brittany, we'll see if she comes back online, but unhinged Brittany, she's here. Here's what I see. And here's the reality is that I think millennials who are crushing it at therapy, we're doing the things, we want to do the best that we can. There are so many ways that we are crushing our children's sense of self-efficacy, which self-efficacy is the ability to know and believe in yourself, the ability to know I can get this done. Right? I know that I can have a challenge and I can get it done. And here's what I see happening. And this is honestly a lot of this episode stems from conversations I've had with clients who are not coming to see me explicit for parenting, but one, that's my first world, right? I was trained to work with children. I worked with children for years and my practice has just evolved with me. So this used to be and is my world, but it's also a part, it's just inevitable. All of the relationships in your life, they are connected, right? So if you are a high performing woman who has asked yourself, ooh, am I totally messing my kid up? My unpopular answer is you could be. I don't know, right? But I think there are ways to look at it a little bit more specifically. And the purpose of this episode, what I want you to take away from this episode is, what is this concept of self-efficacy? How do we develop it in our children? How are we messing it up? To be quite frank, especially as these moms who are go-getters, we get our to-do list done, we operate in this upper extreme. We are in particular so susceptible to kind of crushing the life out of this one very specific quality for our children because we are by nature overfunctioners. Okay, so we're going to talk about what it is, how does this happen, what does it look like if this is something that, your child is struggling with, and then real time, what can you do on your end? I am not coming to you as a parenting expert. I am not coming to you as a mom expert, where I'm coming to you with like real life. What are some things that you as a mother are susceptible to if you identify as like this little baddie powerhouse? Okay. So let's jump in. First and foremost, there's so many interesting philosophies on how to raise your children, and everyone has an opinion. Everyone thinks that they're doing it right. And the reality is that I view it the same way that I view religion. I'll just be real honest. I think there's truth in lots of different approaches. There's beauty in lots of different approaches. But if you go all in to one thing, then you run risk of cutting off other opportunities that might be better suited for your child. So let's start with unpacking what is self-efficacy first and foremost. So self-efficacy is the belief that I'm capable of completing a challenge, of moving through something. It's similar to confidence, right? I think that's probably what we call it. But it's so important because as a child, as a parent, as a mother, it is your job to prepare your child for the future. And a lot of what I am seeing in millennial powerhouse women is that we think it's our job to make our child happy. We think it's our job to put our children, and oh my gosh, we run a risk of this, putting them in a bubble. And I am talking to myself here, okay? If I could put my children in the Galinda little bubble, like that would be so fantastic. Why is a very important question to ask yourself. Why? Because it makes you more comfortable. Okay. It makes you more comfortable. It's easier for you to tolerate, but your children don't learn anything there. So parenting offers a really incredible opportunity to go and do some of the work that is still unfinished. Right. And in particular, if you're a woman who's moving through your healing journey, and you are also building a business, or you're in the corporate world and you are climbing the ladder, right? You have an incredible opportunity and access to further developing your unfinished business by paying attention to what happens inside of you internally when you are parent, when you are mother, when you are source, right? So, and there's a fantastic book. I highly recommend it. I'll leave the link in the show notes. It is called Parenting from the Inside Out. I don't know who it's by. I read it a million years ago. But it talks about the internal process of deciphering when our stuff is showing up and being projected onto our children. This is something I am consistently doing with every single woman who walks through my door who is in some way, shape, or form mother. Okay. Because inherently in the parenting relationship, there's a hierarchy. And when that is the case, we have the unique ability, whether it is we are projecting on our boss, whether we are projecting on our partner, whether we are projecting on our child. Like if there's a hierarchy, it's going to bring up stuff with mom and dad. And to be honest, you. Okay. So what is important to note here is the sooner you can learn to decipher if it's yours or if it's theirs, or if you are putting them inside of this little Galinda bubble, the better off they're going to be. Because the reality is that we are not meant to make our children happy. In fact, I think it is our job to teach our children how to suffer. I want to be real clear before this gets chopped up and like put around the internet. I'm not saying go and like abuse your children. I'm not saying go beat them and teach them how to suffer in that way. Like, no, of course not. What I am saying is that suffering is an inevitable part of life, in that if you are courageous and brave and you put yourself out there and you try to make friends, or you try to join a game, or you ask for a promotion, if you ask your partner for what it is you want and what you need, the answer is not always going to be yes. In fact, most of the time, when you're being vulnerable and you're trying something new or you're being spontaneous, the answer is going to be no the first time. But it's really important that there's a second and a third and a fourth time. This is where growth happens. This is where courage is built, right? So again, it's not a bad thing to want your kids to be happy. I think all of us want our children to be happy. But if you are making sure they're eating organic meals, if you are making sure that they're in enough activities, but it's optimal. It's not too many and it's not too less, right? If you are watching the people that they are surrounding themselves with, if you are consistently iterating and tweaking and like an obsessive way about all this stuff, because caring about these things is not bad. Hear me on that. I'm not saying like toss it all to the wind. I am saying if you only let your children be around people who pass your good enough, whatever, like qualifications, they are not going to know how to go and interact with someone who is difficult. So, how are they going to handle that in adulthood? Now, if this person is causing harm, if this person is whatever, right? Like, I'm not saying be reckless. Of course, you're going to care and be intentional and all of those things. But I firmly believe exposure to different types of people and allowing your child to navigate it is so important. Something that continually shows up for me in my own parenting journey is the regulation in my body that comes from even within like our small parenting group, our mom village, right? The other day we had friends over and I was just in heaven because like a house full of children and we're all making like cookies or brownies. Honestly, it was like chaos. But then like my friend is here and we're co-regulating and it had been a really hard freaking day of momming, but I knew she was coming over. I knew her children were coming over. So honestly, in a lot of ways, I was just like on cloud nine. And also, our group is very intentional about like kind of just let the kids figure it out and allow them to come to you whenever something has happened. Now, there's a few boundaries, there's a few lines here, right? My daughter, gosh, I don't even remember what was happening. The kids were playing a game, they were playing Twister. There's a good child version of Twister. Highly recommend to moms of littles. It's called like Animals and Colors. She can be like, go put your nose on a monkey. And like the kids love it. They were playing that and she steamrolled my friend's daughter, who is gonna turn 2 like next March or April or something like that. I don't know. But she's like little bitty compared to, and this child is a gangster. There's like no other way to describe this little girl. I love her. She's going to be kingpin of like this whole group. I can like see it coming. Like she gives stank face and attitude. I love her. I love her. But my daughter went and like steamrolled her, like knocked her over, pushed her into a door. And I was like, whoa, there's a line. There's a boundary. There's something that we found, right? So I'm not saying allow your kids to like run amok. That was like an automatic, is my daughter okay? But more immediately, is this other little girl okay? And then let's have a conversation about what happened. We're not going to draw it out because you are 3 years old, you're impulsive. I get that. But also there's hard lines and that's not okay. But there's like this other moment where my daughter really wanted to play with my friend's son. And he was like, no, I'm good. He was playing with a transformer. He was living his best life. Okay. It made my daughter really uncomfortable. She was like, oh my gosh, I felt the reaction in my body to want to jump in, to be like, I'll play with you, or hey, go play with this person, or to fix it for her, right? Our task in parenting is to decipher, do I step in? Do I not step in? Which is my role right now? Here's what I want to instill in you, and I want you to put it on a sticky note, especially if this is something that like you're listening and you're kind of cringing because you have the kid who really doesn't want to try new things, not because they're introverted, but because there's not a sense of self, a sense of sturdiness that tells them they can do this. But right, like if you've been cringing, you're like, yeah, that's definitely my kid. Then where I want you to go with that is to ask yourself, is this affecting their safety or their functioning? Okay. This can in particular be true as children get older. I have several clients with clients or children who are like adolescent and young adulthood. Okay. Now, this is a very unique time of parenting because when they're little bitty, we're trying to focus on honestly keeping them alive. If you have children that are like mine, like I swear I have a reincarnation, or just like not reincarnation, but like my son thinks that he's like on an episode of Jackass. He will look at me, make eye contact, and then just like fall off of something because he thinks it's fun and he gets a reaction. I'm like, I'm just going to make you wear a helmet all of the time, child. So there's like the keep them alive stage, then there's like the let's foster some value stage. And then as we get into adolescence and young adulthood, really our role is to take a few steps back, be present, be available when you are needed, but to allow our children to tell us when they want us to step in. And here's the thing, if you have kept your children in a bubble, they are going to be stunned and shocked whenever it comes to real world and they don't get the job that they really wanted, or their friends have told them like, hey, I don't want to spend time with you, or whatever it is. They go through their first major heartbreak. Now, keep in mind, from my perspective, children are going to suffer either way. That is a reality. But if you move into a place of control and fear, your kids are not going to know how to deal with this. Therefore, they are going to shrink. This is how good girl conditioning gets passed down generation to generation. Okay? Is when you have a mother who has not done her work, or a father. I'm talking to ladies right now, okay? Like, y'all aren't my people, but men do the same thing. When you have a mom who feels pressure to be everything to everyone, who shies away from the sensations in her body and behaves in such a way to not have to feel discomfort consistently, right? Over and over and over again. Like, life is full of discomfort. And that truly does not make it a bad life. I'm not saying we live there. I'm not like perpetuating that you stay in that space. But what I am saying is that if you want to teach your child how to not only grow into being a good enough person, grow into being a healthy human being, but also being a human being who is capable of like possibility, then it's your job to get out of the way. And a lot of times as high-performing mothers, we act from a space of control and fear. What are people going to think of my child if she behaves this way? What are her relationships going to look like if she doesn't do X, Y, and Z, right? What is his future partner going to do if he has not been taught X, Y, and Z, and he doesn't move in the way that I want him to? So I really want to instill this idea of, is it impacting their functioning? Is it impacting their safety, especially for older kids? And if the answer is no, then that is your answer. And that means it's time to sit down and figure out, okay, what's coming up for little me? What is coming up for teen me? Because a lot of times what I will tell you, it's our unfinished business. Think about this, right? Like, especially on the the playground is just such a metaphorical and like a physical way to be able to see these dynamics real time, because this is when you're interacting with lots of different people and you just don't have as much control over it, right? We were at the park the other day and my daughter had a few dolls. There was an older girl and she took her doll. And now, if you want to know how quickly can have the urge to, like, speaking of like steamroll, like I want to steamroll that little child, right? She's like 9 years old. And instead I like held my breath and I'm watching, I'm tracking, I'm present with her. I see where I think this is going. And I just waited. And what happened was a really strong lesson for me, because I was sort of just like watching to see. And the whole time, my teenager's coming online, my protectiveness is coming online, right? Like my little mama bear that everyone calls it, like that's coming online. I want to go fix it for her. But I also know that I have seen my daughter display the skills of assertiveness. I have seen her to be capable of speaking up for herself. And I know that it's an area of growth for her to be able to do that with people that she's just met or she's getting to know, right? And I know that is something that is developmentally appropriate. Does that mean I'm going to leave her in it by herself? No. And this is the question a lot of moms will ask me, but like, it's our job to help our children. It's our job to be there for them. You can be there for them and not step in and fix it. And when you can do that, just watch what can happen. Right? I sat and I was watching. and I'm holding my own breath, and I'm then realizing I'm holding my breath, and I'm trying to breathe, and I'm sitting here like Dr. Becky's in my head, and I'm like, I am a plant, I am a plant, I am a plant. Also, while I'm recognizing and noticing like my own stuff, my own experiences, feeling bullied, of feeling like something is unfair, of feeling like someone's not being kind to me, all of that is getting activated in my system, and I'm feeling it. And I'm just very, very present near her. And she initially, like, her shoulders slumped, and she's very expressive, right? I totally think I'm raising theater children. And her shoulders sort of slump, her head slumps, and I'm just in my brain, I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, like, oh, like that activation was so real. And I'm giving it a color, and I'm bringing it out through my mouth, and I'm watching her, and she walks behind this little girl because they're all in a pack. So the other thing that's happening is there's sort of this group mentality of, how do I figure out how I belong in this group? She really wanted to go. She's a girl's girl. She wants to play with other little girls. She also enjoys boys, but like she likes the dresses. She likes the dolls. Like she really enjoys playing with little girls. And in our village, we don't have many girls, right? So anytime we see a few that are at the park, she wants to go join. Makes total sense. So she is then the story I tell myself, if she's like having this moment of like, I feel sadness and I want to be a part of this group. And this girl who a moment ago I was really kind of looking up to, I thought she was really good. Like she's experiencing this dissonance of like, what do I do? She's continuing to follow the group. Shoulders are slumped. And then she sort of has this moment where she stops and she looks at me. And I make eye contact and I tell her like, I love you. And I don't say anything else because I want to say lots of things. And she sort of like looks over at this little girl and she says, that's my doll. I want it back. And it wasn't like big. It wasn't angry. It wasn't anything. And this like probably 10-year-old kid was like, oh, okay. And like handed it back. And like her shoulders came back. Right? My daughter's shoulders came back, her head pops up, and she looks at me and she smiles, and then she continues to go and play with these other little girls. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be that good every single time. I'm not saying you're always going to get the happy ending that you're looking for, but what I'm saying is that if you step in and you fix every moment, if you step in and you fix every negative experience, if you don't allow your child to experience this suffering that is developmentally appropriate, that is not impacting their safety, that is not impacting their overall functioning, meaning their grades, their ability to feed themselves, their ability to sleep, right? Those kinds of things. Because if it is, then it's 100%, like you better get up in their business. But if it's not, step back and take a breath. Because when I tell you, my daughter was talking about that for the rest of the day, and not, this girl took my doll and she was so mean, right? No, what my daughter was talking about was, I can use my words. And I can't remember the exact like 3-year-old phrasing, right? But it was, I used my words and I asked. And a lot of times something I will say is, like, I enjoy knowing what you want. I enjoy knowing what you need. I enjoy hearing your words. And this was her opportunity to get to experience it real time. If I would have stepped in, I want you to think about the fact that identity and beliefs, internal worlds, right, are built on associations that happen within our nervous system, that happen within our environment. So connecting a thought, a feeling, and a belief is how we are creating our sense of self, okay? So if I would have stepped in and said, hey, little punk, give my kid her doll back, my daughter would have learned mom is going to step in and save me. And if that happens enough over and over again, which typically is what happens with high performing moms, it's such a, right? I can do that. I can do it better. If you have that internalized belief, then why would you not want to do that for your kids? If you do that enough, then she learns to be in victim. She learns that she's not capable. And this is where we see these massive trends and a rise in anxiety for these kids who are coming up in the ranks, right? Jen, whatever they are, alpha, beta, I don't know. But my prediction is it's only going to get worse with the rise of AI. So as parents, it is your job to teach your child. Like I was literally reading an article the other day that was talking about how children are now preferring to go and talk to ChatGPT or an AI tool rather than going to therapy because it's more comfortable, because they trust it more. This is so dangerous, but this is also, from my perspective, a failure in parenting to allow your child to learn they can experience discomfort. Right? We have gone, and the way that we parent, it's just one huge reaction to the way that we were parented. So because of the way you were parented, if you grew up with very passive parents, if you grew up with very authoritarian or they're authoritative, I forget which one, but like those parents that are way too hands, like helicopter parents, right? You were going to swing to the other extreme and you're going to say, this is what I need to be doing. And the reality is like, I think it is most healthy to come from a place of we're going to recycle our parenting that we received. We're going to take the pieces that worked and we are going to perhaps even take these other pieces that really didn't work, but you can make something beautiful of it. You can find a middle ground, right? Maybe we're not going to like beat our kids, but we are going to hold a boundary and we're going to teach them how to stay connected and safe within themselves while we hold this boundary. Truly, self-efficacy is so highly correlated to overall life satisfaction. I think it is the number one skill that we need to be teaching our children. And yes, we need to teach them how to feel their feelings. Yes, we need to teach them how to be connected to ourselves. But underneath all of that is the ability to know that they are capable of doing so. So as you have this moment, if you have had a moment with your child on the playground, if you've had this moment of, oh my gosh, I want to step in, I want to fix it, or I'm not going to hang out with this family because they're different from me, they make me uncomfortable, I want you to practice the skills of getting curious. What data is my child giving me about this situation? Are they uncomfortable or are they unsafe? Right? It's healthy to be uncomfortable. Ask anyone who's ever worked out, anyone who's ever picked up a heavier weight. Discomfort does not necessarily equal trauma. Now, prolonged discomfort without connection, right? Those are all very different stories, but I very firmly believe that we will be looking at a different generation of children if we can learn to teach them how to experience suffering, to let them know that they're not going, like they're not alone through this process, right? And to teach them that you are actually very capable of figuring this out, whether that's internally on their own, or it's asking for help, or it's deciding, I want to do something that feels more aligned, because copy and paste that into what would it be like for you if you had been handed those beliefs at their age. If you had been taught that your ability to care for yourself, your ability to say and voice what you want and what you need, and to honor that was more important than what the people around you actually thought. If you had the ability to say, I can actually do most anything that I want, I just might have to ask for help. I know that I can pivot if I want to when I gain new data, and or there's going to be someone who's going to walk through this with me. Either way. Like what a world, right? So getting really curious about what is actually showing up for you, in what ways are you possibly sheltering your children? To me, right, like women, mothers, high performing mothers are so prone to doing this. My encouragement to you is to turn those powers of yours to overfunction. And I want you to like funnel them for good. Okay. I want you to sit and go through and actually get curious, take stock, take inventory. Has it been their relationships? Has it been controlling what they're eating? Has it been controlling the way that they present themselves, right? As long as it's not impacting functioning, it's not actually an issue. So as always, y'all, let me know what you thought of today's episode. We're just letting things flow. We're playing with it a little bit. And I want to know whether or not this is helpful, or if you're like, woman, get you an outline, you're a little ADHD. Okay. I want to know what you thought of this content, because as I've been putting it together, right now it's been less focused on what am I marketing and more focused on, because like honestly, truly, right? Like this podcast came from an idea, a message, all of that, but also it is a marketing tool. This week, we're really playing with the idea of getting quiet and allowing source to sort of inform sessions and episode sessions versus me top down driving it. So I would love to know how y'all are experiencing that. And as always, I hope that you found this episode helpful, and I will see you on the next one. Alrighty, friend, that is all for today's episode of the Aligned Powerhouse podcast. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And do me a favor, if this episode resonated, I want you to share it with another powerhouse woman in your life who is ready to lead and love from a place of self-trust. And don't forget to follow, subscribe, and leave a quick rating or review. It really does help more women find this work. New episodes drop every week. Until then, lead with self-trust and let yourself be seen.